All right, hey everybody, welcome back. It's the Rick team. Uh, Eric and I are catching up. Just tonight we're going to talk about time. Uh, we were talking the other day, and just time is one of those things that we all take for granted. Uh, it's the one thing we all know for sure we don't have an endless supply of, and you don't know how much of it you have. So, I mean, all the different things that go with it. Uh, Everything it's all about time, and I like that concept for multiple reasons. So a lot of stuff's been going on lately. We had our recent podcast with the RevX guys from the cold plunge, so shout out to those guys. I got mine set up, haven't done my first plunge yet, so we'll have to talk about that. But today is actually the concept that I want to talk about is the phrase that we use, it's about time. And we say that in multiple ways. We say it, when you're like, oh man, yeah, I'm finally getting in the gym. And you're like, yeah, it's about time, right? Joking with somebody or whatever. Um, or, if you're thinking about why you're doing stuff, or, um, why you make a drastic change in your life, or whatever, it's about time, as in it's about how much time do I have left? How much time am I wasting on things? So, and I have to give credit to a guy named Kobe. He's a captain in Fresno Fire where I used to work. He did a phenomenal eulogy at a funeral, and the guy that passed away was an engineer and then ultimately a captain with Fresno Fire. Passed away from cancer, job-related cancer. He also worked on the same crew as Pete Dern, my buddy that got burned in a structure fire about 10 years ago. And the guy's name was Walt. And Walt was a legend. He was from the East Coast, just big guy, 6'7", 6'8". Had the New York accent, always talking shit, always hard on everybody. I mean, he was like the epitome of a fireman, just salty as hell, but and a hell of a fireman, great fireman. And man, he had one of the gnarliest battles with cancer I've ever personally seen. It was like several years of just up and down, and it was like the worst news to start, and then there was all this hope. It was like he beat it, and he was gonna survive, and then the cancer came roaring back, and this dude was so tough that he fought it and fought it and fought it. And I, for the last year and change of his career, he was kind of like assigned to the same training division as I was. And so he actually shared an office with me, and we actually had a lot of long talks because it was right after I had gotten into all this stuff. It was right after I'd gotten my SGB shot, right after I'd gone to the Center of Excellence. I came back, him and I talked, and he was staring death in the face. So, he had a very good perspective on life and about time. And ultimately, he retired in May of 2024, so last year, and he passed away in August. I mean, so he got 3 months of retirement, and he was pushing to get to retirement, to increase it to take care of his family. I mean, that was his whole thing. Him and I would talk about it, and it was just, it was I wasn't as close to Walt as a lot of guys on the job were. I always respected him. I think he respected me as a fireman. I think I don't know. He was a hard ass, so who knows? But we got along well, and we had conversations. We worked together several times. Um, but this idea, it's about time. Kobe, uh, he did a eulogy for Walt's funeral in August of last year, and that was his whole. Usually at a eulogy, um, people want to honor someone and really deep dive on what a great person they are, and how they're in a better place and all this kind of stuff. And Kobe did a great job honoring Walt, but he really emphasized that it's about time. It's about time in the fire service that we start taking care of ourselves, that we start washing our gear, that we stop breathing in the smoke that we don't need to, wear your mask and start paying attention to the decisions you make every single day that impact your health. It's about time. It's about time that we do that. But at the same time, he was getting across it's about time with your family. It's about time with anyone that's in your circle that you love and how precious it is, how fast it's gone. Walt left behind, a young boy, a son, who emulated his father, looked up to him, and and that kid's, he lost his father to something really shitty. So it's not fair. They didn't get enough time. So that part to me is like that. It's about the time that that they had together. So, anyways, I just think with all the stuff we always talk about, it's pretty relevant to a lot of our topics that we pick. And I just thought it was fitting because today's actually would have been Walt's birthday. So I know for sure that
Oh,
there's people, I saw a bunch of stuff going around that people sent kind of in our circles about like, I think Walt would have been 56 this year. So, I mean, you know,
so young,
maybe
dude.
mid 50s though. Yeah, just not right, dude. And in the last three, I know it was at least 3 years. It might have been even up to 5 years that he fought cancer.
Wow.
And it was so gnarly, dude. But so yeah, I don't know, man. What do you think about it?
Yeah, when you called me up the other day about this concept, I loved it right away. I was like, that's awesome because with so much stuff going on, we just got out of, the pandemic a couple of years ago, and people are still suffering from that, right? People are still kind of suffering. The economy's suffering from it. There's uh, families, a lot of people got kind of stuck, right, in a lot of things, and just are kind of living in the past a lot. And I think it's about time. It's the first thing that came to my head was the Pennywise song or Pennywise album, About Time. Initially, actually,
Right on. Oh, that's
but
awesome.
it's true, man. I think the older we get, Shane, it's like you look in the mirror and you're like, wow, days just go by faster, years go by faster, and about time. I know for me personally, uh, how like with your friend Walt, it's like losing Sable. Those things, that's what I thought a few years ago, right? And I was in my mid 30s, and it's like that's like super young. And Sable was 33, and so it's like at that time when you go through those massive challenges in life, it's like you can have money problems, you can have job issues or something like that. But a very difficult thing to deal with that gets your emotions is like when someone you love dies, right? Whether it's age, whether it's a cancer, whether it's a job related death due to a fire or something like that. It's like it really does. It made me reevaluate time in a lot of ways. It made me reevaluate perspective, intention, thoughts, um, relationships, right? In a lot of ways. And I think that's very difficult. Sometimes the older we get, I think I know I have to fight this. You get a little cynical. You might go through a lot of things and, whatever, that's going to happen. Maybe it'll get a little negative or whatever. But I think it's about time that gets changed, right? And I think the older we get, we need to keep that inner child and still have fun, still want to change, still want to learn new things, still want to have as much personal growth as we can have. And when you see things going on, like just like with Javen, right? Super young dude, super young, and there's plenty of things. If you guys, sorry, I said our friend Javen, but we lost him just a few months ago, and he was just in his mid 40s, and he was a stud as well. FDNY, Long Beach, Ontario, and we got the call that he died at home, and it's just like we were supposed to just have a beer together, and we didn't. It's like we're so busy with life. It's like, hey, we'll catch you on the next one, right? But it's like it's about time, just make it happen. And I get it. We're busy. We've got family. We've got jobs. We got bills to pay. I totally understand that. But I think we definitely get in the rut of just not making things that important when we maybe could rearrange things um, to maybe see people we haven't seen, for a while, or the conversation, or the text message, or even a video call. We can even do something as simple as that. And I think it's awesome that you and Walt uh, were able to have some of those conversations, because someone going through something like cancer, I've never gone through something like that. I've been through other things in my life, but my aunt went through breast cancer as well, and she beat it, but their thinking is completely different. And I think when you have like a warrior, or someone that you said like is super strong, when you talk to them, they're hurting inside, they're scared, but they want to stay strong to beat it. And I think when you have conversations with ones like that, it's very inspiring. And it seems like that's what it did for you with Walt, um, and some of your buddies, and the eulogy that they talked about. And I think in the fire service, it's easy for us to, first of all, not take care of ourselves. We take care of everybody else. We don't take care of ourselves. And this isn't just the fire service. This is just life, right? I think it's your marriage. It's your spiritual side. It's your financial side. It's your uh, mental side. Your physical side. You just got your cold plunge. It's about time, fool. You got your cold.
Spot on. That's a lot of this is exactly that, because and you know where that came from was because you put in the time to get the RevX guys together and introduce me to him, and talking to him, as I mean, that conversation we had was what pushed me over the edge. I've known for years I wanted one. I mean, we had one at the training facility I was in charge of, and but we would just use ice, and it was at work. It was a little easier, but I've got a sauna. I've got a hot tub in my backyard. I mean, why do I not have a cold plunge? It was one of those things. Exactly. I'll get around to it. I'll get around to it. Eventually I will. Um, and yeah, as we talked to those guys, in my head, it was like, yeah, dude, it's about time. Just get it. Just pull the trigger. Like these guys have a great product. Eric loves it. Just do it. It's about time. Do it.
Yeah,
Um, so you're spot on. That's exactly, I mean, that's one of those material type things, but it all dovetails together, and everything you're saying is exactly why I think it's such an interesting topic to talk about, because it could just be so many different aspects of our life that you talk about. And there's so many things about that really short time I got to spend around Walt. I mean, on average, I'd see him a few hours a day. um he'd come in the morning, and coming to the office, and it was, you could always tell if he'd had a chemo round or whatever, because he just looked so rough, and you could just see it on his face. He's just like, just struggling, man. And I would say, like, dude, you don't have to be here, right? Like, go home, be with your family. And he's like, what am I gonna do? My kid's at school, you know, wife's working. He's like, I'm just gonna sit and stare at the wall. He's like, I'm a fireman. I want to be here. He wanted to be around firemen. And at the time, there was academies going on. And so he was able to mentor these kids that were in the academy. And I totally respect, and I understood that, you and I have talked in previous podcasts about purpose and how important that is. And um, for him, I mean, he had his purpose. He was there helping out. Um, but yeah, I mean, when it was getting close to when his son was getting out of school, like that the time of day his son would get out, he'd get out of there to get home, to spend that time, every possible minute that he could with his family, because I 100% believe that he knew his time was short. Like, there was always the hope and the prayers and the things being talked about, and well, maybe this will happen, and and they even did a crazy, crazy surgery at the end that was really, really uh, invasive, and just it was one of those, like, Hail Marys. They hoped it was going to do something, and everybody held on to hope with that. But I remember talking to him, and you could see him. He was so beat up, tired, exhausted, and just, he'd been a warrior for so long. But, I think he tried to maximize all the time he had. And so, um, that this year, me leaving that agency for another one, stepping into a role as a battalion chief, which gets me off the floor. I don't have to wake up at night as much. I don't have to expose myself as much. You know the roles. As much as like I never in a million years thought I would do that, I will always be grateful to the time I spent with Walt to push me in that direction, to just be like, I did all this shit when I was a kid. I don't need to keep doing it. It's about time. It's about the time I have left. It's about, I'm 47. I'm not super old, but dude, I'm probably midpoint of my life. And it's, I keep acting like I'm 25 and
Good.
when my
That's
body's
what keeps you
not
young.
25.
The
Well,
cold
you're
plunge will help
mental,
with
that's
that,
one
man.
thing, but yeah. Um, anyways, yeah. So that, that it's just, it just gets you thinking about a lot of stuff, obviously, for so many different ways. And depending on what you've been through, your experience with Sable, I mean, can't even imagine, as far as the time that and then you go back, right? And you're constantly wishing that you would have spent more time. Your example of Javen is perfect. It's why didn't I do that? And in fact, I did something today where I got off work this morning in Santa Maria and I drove to Morro Bay to see one of my good buddies. He's got a 4-year-old daughter. I've only seen her a handful of times, and I mean, she's not gonna stay 4 forever, and she's at that fun age where just, it's like pure joy, and just,
Yeah.
those little kid hug that, oh, Uncle Shane, she's just all lit up and giving you that real hug, and it's so good for the soul, man. And
Yeah.
and I had a million, I could go home, jam home, put the cold plunge together. I got stuff to do. And I'm like, nah, dude, I went out there and just sat and hung out with him for a few hours. And, I'm glad I did. And then, but that's why, right? Because that time just ticks away. And she reminds me of my niece who's now 22 in college, too busy for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like, like we do. And, anyways, yeah, so time is one of those things that it's so easy to um, kick the can and think that you have more of it, and that um, you will, like you said, we'll hook up, we'll catch up, um, and then you don't get the opportunity anymore.
Yeah, dude. I think here's the thing. We are replaceable at work, right? When you retire, someone else is gonna come get the job. When you die, they gotta fill the spot. Um, if you're young enough, or if you're older, or maybe you go through a death of a loved one, you can remarry. A wife can be replaceable. A husband can be replaceable. Not saying it's going to be the same love, but that can be replaced. Dogs can be replaceable. You can always make more money. Jobs can be replaceable. But what I've really realized is there's one thing we cannot get back. We cannot get the minute prior back. I look at the minute. We can't get anything. We can't get yesterday back. We can't get the year prior
No.
to that back. We cannot get our time back. So I feel like that's a big thing I've learned, is like time is very, very precious. Because we get older, your body just, if you and if you're not, what it was Walt, was that, I'm thinking it was job related, right? Did we talk about that? Was it
Yeah, I mean, he got covered by work comp, and I mean,
okay?
but even that was a battle. But yeah, it was, yeah, it was job related.
Okay. And I think with that, like, we I had this conversation with some of the guys up at AV the other day, and about the podcast, and they have a rookie, and I've been spending a lot of time with those guys after the college, because I've been just staying at the station with them, running some calls, and just having fun and getting to know some of the newer guys better. And we had a conversation. He's 31, and we were just talking about like station life and the career and stuff, and we brought up like the 7 to 10 year mark is when we start seeing some changes in maybe your thinking, getting a little burnout, maybe some marital things, or you have a kid, you're making more money but things get more complicated. Now you have the house because you're making more money, you have the car, you have more payments, you've got the kids, you've got the school, you've got the wife, you've got all these different things, right? And one of my other buddies I've known for a while, he looked at me and he just took a pause and he goes, "Wow, you're right. It was at the 8 year mark when I was super lost." in my career. And I'm like, yeah, we just kind of figured it's around like that 7 to 10 year mark, depending where you work, depending what's going on, how many calls, you've been running. And I thought about, it's about time when you told me this a couple of days ago. It's like, I think our nature as humans is we'll take care of it when the problem's in front of us, right? Maybe it can be your diet, maybe it can be aches and pains in your body, maybe it could be whatever the thing is. Okay, I'll take care of it when this happens, right? And then it's like it's about time we take care of ourselves. Whatever those things we need to do, whether it's the cold plunge for your mental and physical health, whether it's the sauna, whether it's communication, whether it's spending more time with your wife, learning how to communicate better, how to have a better love life, how to communicate with your kids better or family better, or like you did today with seeing your friends, like just setting that time for the things that really matter. Money will always be there. That will always be there. You can make a lot of it or a little bit of it or whatever. It's how hard we want to work for that. Time will not always be here. Time is and it goes fast. And I think the concept of it's about time is so great because, like, I know I lost that for a very long time. You get so busy with life, you're involved. It's all great stuff, but sometimes I don't want to say priorities get, because if you're really trying to accomplish something, things are not going to be in balance. It's just the nature of life when you're trying to be the best at something. But if you don't realize that priority, you could lose the time, if that makes any sense. So, like, if you're trying to become a fireman, or you're trying to become the best at whatever you're trying to be at, that's going to be number one in your life because you're trying to accomplish something to better your future. But that time can go a lot longer if you're not paying attention to it. You might disconnect from friends and family. You might not hang out with, the loved ones you should hang out with, or the text message or the video chat or whatever it might be, just checking in with others because you're just so goal driven and so into the next thing. And I know us as firemen, we're just so like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, right? I know a lot of people are like that, but I think with first responders in particular, because of the fight and flight, we're just very anxious a lot, and we're like just have to keep going, going, and going, and it's easy to lose what's going on today in the present, and really uh, trying to set your schedule the best it can be for the day. And there's so many guys I talk to, man. Hey, how's it going? Well, just working, just grinding away. Okay, cool. How's the family? They're good. They're busy. And I kind of hear the same uh, stories a lot, but I'm like, how are you? And it's rare that I hear like, you know what, things are great. Like family's great, kids are busy, work's going good, this, that, and the other thing is sometimes it's hard to have a conversation with a lot of people because you're just so busy with life, which is good, but it's also good for us to check in with ourselves, check in with like, how are we doing, right? And yeah, man. And depending what you go through in life, depending what job you have, that can be very difficult. But if there's one thing I can tell anybody that's listening, like, it's about time you look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, do I like what I see? And if you don't, fix it. It really
Yeah.
is as simple as that. It's easier said than done, but once you make that decision, then it's going to be, that's going to be your challenge, whatever it is. It might not be a handful of things. Maybe it's one thing. I got to communicate with my wife better. Or my wife's been saying this for a couple of years. I need to go on that date. Or she wants to travel here. Or maybe it's not the money. I know us as guys, that was a big thing for me, was like, well, I'm making the money. I'm doing this. And a lot of women are like, I don't care about the money. The majority, if they're like a good woman, it's like, just pay attention to me. Like, communicate with me. Just love me.
Yeah.
Right? It ain't the things. It's your time with me. And so it's like, what I'm trying to say is we need to pay attention to our surroundings, and it's about time, like you're saying, is we really step back and pay attention to what's going on. And if we have to make some of those decisions, make those decisions, whatever that is for you personally. Um, and
Well, it's a good
yeah,
thing to think about in this career because, especially if you work in a department where overtime is available, overtime is great to supplement your income, but it's also a trap because when you work in a place where you can go on Amazon and see something that you want and go, oh, that's 3 overtimes. That's 2 overtimes. I mean, that's literally how we talk.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. We're super fortunate. That's great. But what happens when you get into this loop where you're doubling what you're making through overtime? Is that bad? No, it's not bad. It's good. It's great. It's an awesome opportunity that we're even fortunate enough to have that as an option. But it's about your time. It's about what it takes to work those overtimes. That overtime's another 24 hours away from your home, your family, your people, your tribe. Um, some people want that because they don't want to be at home. Their life sucks. They're miserable. They're in a bad marriage. They hate their kids. Whatever it is, I see it. There's people I work with now, just like I worked with before, that would rather be at work. There was a spell there for myself where I was like that. I would rather be at work. I'd rather be at the firehouse.
Yep.
At least I was getting paid overtime, but I was having fun there. I just didn't want to be home.
Same. Exact same, dude. Yep. Yeah.
But that it's a trap. I mean, it's one of those things where it's great, but living a life that demands you actually do all this extra work to do exactly what you're saying, force you into take a look in the mirror and do the size up. Do I like what I see? Do I enjoy the life I've built myself? I mean, we all know them. There's people who uh, would work every single day if they could for overtime. And I look at that and I think, great, you made a crazy amount of money. You were at work the whole time. What did you do with it? I mean, where's it going? You just you squirreling it away? Is it in your mattress? Like, I don't get it. But um, this last year, I know I worked over 2,000 hours of overtime, and the jump I just made was, a significant bump for me that will allow me to be home more, and it makes up a gap that I no longer need to work a certain amount of overtime. And to me, that's part of it, is that watching what Walt went through, his fight, that inspired me to go, yeah, it's about your time.
Yeah.
And if I can find something that will pay me more, that gives me more time at home, less time being exposed, how's that a bad thing? That's a win all the way around. But it's hard to make that leap.
It is, man. And that's not an easy leap though. So like people can be like, well, that's nice. You're a BC. I don't have the time to take classes. I don't have the time for this. I don't have the time for that. Right. They can use the excuse of something like that. It's like when you make that decision, it's like there's a lot of work that's going to have to be done in that path. And I know when I talked to you and you were doing all this stuff, you're just like, man, I'm taking this class, I'm taking that class, I'm driving here, I'm driving there. It's like because you had something in your mind of, you know, I need to make this step for me for whatever reasons they were for you. And now that you're there, I asked you the other day, I'm like, how you feeling, man? You're like, dude, this is great. I'm sleeping, I'm this, I have more time with my wife, and it's going well for you. So no, I think it's great, man. There's so much with our time that we can do and we can't do. I kind of lost you, I think. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Oh,
I think my
okay.
video froze.
Yeah, your video
Sorry, you don't
froze.
get to see my ugly face.
All you listeners, you're probably so glad you can't see Shane's ugly face. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's for sure.
No, I'm kidding. Uh, but there's something that I wanted to talk about too. I was talking to, I don't want to bring up her name, but someone we know well, and she was like, "Man, I wish I could just teach like resilience to people." And she goes, "Some people just aren't resilient. I just wish I can give them my resiliency." And it's kind of like, everybody has their time, and we need to recognize that. But uh, I'm in this book by it's Ross Edgley, Edgley or Egley. I always forget how to say it. But as we're going through this with, it's about our time. It's about, the challenges and figuring it out. And uh, what he said is resilience can't be rushed, but quitting can. And I think sometimes I did this for a while. It's like just comparison, and that stuck with me because it was about time for me to stop freaking comparing my situation to everybody else. And there were numerous times I'm like, gosh, I feel like I'm not resilient, or that person went through something more difficult, or you know I failed, in a family, and I failed the job, or the guys I worked with, or whatever, and I felt like such a failure. I'm like, it's about time that I stopped talking to myself like that. It's about time that you just, everybody's journey is different. And when I heard that, as far as resilience uh, can't be rushed, but quitting can, I'm like, that is so true. Because when I look back at myself being younger, um, I didn't even know what resiliency was. I didn't know what being resilient was. I don't know what mindset was. I didn't know any of this stuff that I know now today. And my resiliency it took me a lot of time, but I never quit. And I think for anyone else out there that feels like they're in a hole, or they're just going through something so difficult right now, and there's so many different people I'm talking to on that level that feel like that. It's like, just realize that your journey is going to take time, but what you're doing is you now have, at least you've realized it, and that's the biggest step right there, is realizing it. And whatever's going to happen in the future is going to happen in the future, but you're, realizing it and stepping forward is the best thing you can do. I cannot even see you.
Yeah, no, I just turned off the video feed. I don't know what's going on, but another, yeah, I I go back to when I met my wife. Um, there was a time. It was funny. We met in Brazil, and then obviously, I mean, the story. I went back down, and then eventually, when she decided to come up to America, I went to LAX to pick her up. Down there in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
and I remember, dude, it's the craziest thing. I don't know if I ever told you this. The night before I went down to pick her up, like I had this weird dream that something happened to me, that I got I got killed in a fire. And I had this dream that she, she got off the plane and was like walking through the airport all excited to meet me there, and, go see California with me. And, she was just waiting and waiting and waiting because I was never there because of what had happened at work. And it was funny. It was a wild dream, obviously, you know, and, but it made me think back then about just, man, like how quick life changes in the blink of an eye when you have all these grand plans to do stuff, and something happens and just derails it. And it goes back into that same thing about the time, because obviously here it is, 6 years we're married, uh, all and the last couple of years I've been telling her, babe, I know I work a lot, but it's all for a reason, right? We're building businesses, we're doing stuff, we're gonna have all this time together soon, when I get to the certain point that then I can be home more. And it's exactly what we're talking about, where none of that's guaranteed. There is no
Mm-mm.
certainty that I will have that time. And so now it was like, again, go back to making the decision I made to move on to a different place. It's like, well, that's a concrete step in the right direction for giving myself more time. And a lot of it goes back to the last several years. Like I said, multiple times I remember having the same conversation with her about, yeah, I know it sucks right now. It's 2,000 hours away on top of my normal standard schedule. So you're getting closer to like 4,000 hours in a year. Um, And then at one point she said, it was last year, before I made the decision to um, test for, like a chief job. She made the comment that she said she felt like she was single, and she didn't say it in a mean way.
Mm.
She didn't say it in a. She wasn't angry at me. She just said, "Yeah, it's just hard. I just feel like I'm single a lot of the time because you're never here. Like my friends don't know who you are. You don't go with us to anything. Because when I'm home, I just want to be home, and uh, so then she doesn't even want to ask me to go to dinner or something that she knows I'm probably not going to want to go do. Um, and so, man, I remember when she said that, though, I was like, I got to do something to get more time, to make sure that the time I have, um, that I can spend it with her. So,
And I think, dude, that I don't know if that's an age thing or if that's just you realized it, but I know like because Sable, I've only that's the only time I was married. So she would say those things, but I was younger, and it would honestly, dude, it would go in one ear out the other. I'm like, well, okay, like you married me, I was going to be gone, I'm busy, I'm doing these things, and I don't know if that's because I don't know what that is, but I wish I would have responded like I wish I would have had the mindset that I have now of actually understanding and paying attention to that communication, and rather than just, well, it is what it is, and really trying to do what you I mean, I did later going back to Apple Valley, but no, I think it's just critical to see that. And sometimes you can't because it is what it is. It's just life and it's part of it. But I think the better we communicate that and the better that we realize those things, because if you are in a relationship that you truly love, not just in a relationship to just make it work, but if you're in something that you truly love, if you're working for the place you love, if you are in healthy relationships, like, yeah, you should realize those things and uh, make the time and make the necessary adjustments to make things right, like you're doing, dude, for sure. And you could have been like, oh, it is what it is, but you heard it, and it's your journey, and you got the SGB, and I think with that and everything that's been going on the past couple years, like I think you see things in a different light, and I think it's pretty sick, dude. I think it's pretty cool.
no, that's definitely. I don't give me too much credit. I was a complete dick multiple times about it for for the first probably 4 years we were married. Just like, you know, what do you want? Do you want to live this nice life or not? If you don't, I don't have to work overtime. I was always mad at anytime she brought it up. Like, well, hey, can
Yeah.
we just spend some time? Yeah, I'd love to be home, but I don't have that luxury. I have to be at work. I got to pay for this. I always throw it back at her and just be a complete dick about it. Um, because it's how I felt. I'd be angry because like, yeah, I don't want to work 5 days in a row, 6 days in a row, get my ass handed to me running 20 calls a day, come home beat up, and then now you want me to pretend to be happy when I'm wiped out, exhausted, and you want to go to Yosemite on a weekend that is going to be full of idiots up there, and I start down those those stupid pathways.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate you giving me credit, but that was something that only happened recently, where through all the work, through all the stuff that we've been doing, it's able to sort of step back and actually hear her and um not make it not take it personal to where it made me angry, but made me really like hear her and realize, wow, that's got to be a shitty feeling to feel
Yeah.
like you're single, to and then again to see, uh to tie it back into It's About Time, when we went to Walt's funeral and Kobe gave this incredible eulogy using this as the linchpin of the message he was sending.
Yeah.
uh, it resonated deeply with me. And I remember seeing Walt's widow, Trina, and I mean, she's a powerhouse and just an incredibly strong person. And she fought every step of the way with Walt, and was um, and still is just you know a very strong person, and but seeing her at that funeral, she spoke at the funeral, which was incredible that she could get up in front of a giant packed house and um, walking out of there at that same. It was just that timing in my life was perfect. It was that. It
Yeah.
was Mari saying to me that you're never home, and all those things that kind of. And what's funny too, Eric, is it's a lot of this is coming clear to me now. I think it was stuff that when it happened, it didn't really. It's not like in that moment I immediately recognized it and put all these plans into action.
Hmm.
But I look at it now and I'm like, oh, that's exactly what propelled me forward on a certain path was that I am paying attention to these things now. When something affects me, I do internalize it and act on it. So um yeah, I think when we're younger and when you don't know, or especially when you're still stuck in the fight or flight, I don't even know how you do that. I don't even know if it's possible.
No, like, yeah. So I'm gonna go back to the conversation that I had with one of the new dudes out there. And there was some stuff we talked about that happened in his childhood and kind of went into adulthood. And I think it's easy to get stuck in if you're, how do I say this? If you're some have a more difficult childhood than others. Some have a pretty good childhood, and I think a lot of stuff stems from our childhood. I don't know what the exact stats are, but that's the majority of it. Decisions that were made from the parents into the kids, and then the decisions we made as the kid, and so on and so forth. But sometimes that, not sometimes, the majority of the time, that goes into our adulthood, and then we don't even realize the decisions that we're making. And what this young fireman was talking about was how some of those traumatic issues really changed his life, and he held on for a very long time, and he finally started taking care of it, and he did. But in his mind, he was like, yeah, I just finally realized, like, I had to go take care of this because it was going to keep hurting me. And it goes back into the concept of it's about time that whatever it is we need to take care of, make the decision to take care of it. And every day that goes by that we don't take care of something, and I'm not even saying it doesn't even have to be bad, it can be something good, right? Just send somebody a text or do something good for somebody or inspire somebody. But on the bad side, on the more challenging side of it, when you have to work on yourself, that's a lot harder. um, but the decisions we make and taking accountability for our time on a daily basis, like, it can be very difficult. And I think when you're tired, there's something you said, I heard her. I'm actually listening. I'm paying attention. And when you're in that fight or flight, or when you're just burnt out or stressed or over it financially, just trying to make ends meet, it's very hard to listen. It's very hard to actually pay attention. And going to the concept of it's about time, it's like, if you need to get your finances in order, figure it out, write stuff down. If that's what's stressing you out, then if that'll make things better, figure it out. And a lot of the time, we don't want to tackle the things that we know are going to make things better, because it's hard, it's difficult. So it's like, it's about time, just freaking do it. Take care of it, do what needs to be done, whatever that is. And I mean, I don't know everybody's situation, but I just know mine personally. When you do that and you take accountability for those things, like, things will work out how they need to work out, and they typically get a lot better. And in that concept of about time, like, yeah, you just got to realize it and do it, man.
Well, we talked about it, I think, a few episodes back with the idea of, you just start doing something. Um, Nothing gets done until you take the first step. And I think that's important when you're saying for somebody to do that. It's like you don't have to have the perfect 10-step plan laid out with everything detailed down to the last, you know, little finite detail, whatever, but just start making decisions and moving in that direction, whatever that is, whatever it is that you decide. It can be very simple or it could be very complex. So depending on your situation, it's a matter of i- if you do hit that point where like, okay, it's about time I do this and I'm going to just start, just do the best you can, um,
Yeah.
because you don't know how much time you have.
No, no, you don't, dude.
So it's
And
simple.
I another thing I hear a lot too is like, yeah, I should do that. Yeah, I should get on my diet. Yeah, I should go for the walk. Yeah, I should do this or that, the other thing, or whatever it might be. Um, but it's like, yeah, you just start. But I know for me, dude, like, how do you, if you're feeling lost or if you're feeling you're at rock bottom right now. Someone listening to this, you're going through a major change in your life. You're going through a divorce, or you've lost someone you loved, or you're switching jobs, and you're doing, you're having some major challenges in life, and you're like, well, it's about time. It's about time for what, guys? Like, I freaking heard this numerous times. Like, sure, just start. It's not that easy, but it really is. But like, sometimes you have to feel lost, and I didn't grasp that concept either of just if you're lost, like sometimes you have to be lost to re-find yourself, and that's okay. And I know that happened for me. I felt super lost. I was like, what is going on? Who am I? Where am I going? What's up? What's down? And I kept telling myself, like, dude, just figure it out. Like, it's about time you start something, or just go do this or go do that. And I was always trying to find an answer versus just letting the day play out. And what I had to come realize was like, it's about time I just stop putting so much pressure on myself and just take the day as it comes, and things will work out. And if you feel lost, or if you're going through something difficult, and you're having a hard time, refine yourself or whatever, like, you'll be okay. And sometimes, yeah, when you're lost, you that's where you build. We talk about resiliency, like that's where you become resilient. And that's where you find your answers. That's where you dig deep for maybe a skill set that you thought you never had because you've had to learn something new. And if your mindset is in something, if you keep going back to the same thinking, like, tell yourself, no, I'm going to go learn something new. Like, it's about time you get rid of the old thinking and start thinking in a different way. That it can be something as simple as that, but your brain is going to play tricks on you. So just be aware of that and control that thing. But my point is, if you feel lost and you're having a difficult time getting back on track, like, that is totally normal. Don't feel like it's abnormal. I think if I would have had, somebody to tell me that in the beginning, like, no, it's okay if you're lost. Like, just keep going. You'll find your way. You just have to start going in some direction. And I always go back to your sailing thing of Bonaire. Like, you had a direction you were going, but you went off a little bit, and then you went back on course. And it's like, it is what it is. You weren't lost per se, right? But you were going to a course and you took the left turn. It's like, that's okay. Um, as
Yeah,
long as
and
you're
it changed
pointing
my
in some
life.
direction. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like in an incredible way, like I mean it it probably um I can't even imagine what my life looks like today if I didn't make that left. Because I have
Yeah.
no idea. I mean, not to say that it would be like a terrible mess or whatever, but it would probably just be completely different. I mean, hell, I could still be living on a boat somewhere in the world. Who knows? It's that's that thing I was talking about, like with Mari flying into the country was, what if something had happened to me and she was sitting there at the airport and what if she never found out? She didn't know any of my friends. She didn't know anybody. She had no connection to my life here. And all she knew was I was going to pick her up at the airport, and
Yeah.
imagine if I hadn't have showed up and now this poor girl would have had to, you know, just been lost and figured, I mean, she would have figured it out and she would have just thought I was just an asshole that left her there. Like just
Yeah.
didn't show up or whatever. It's a crazy way to think about how life is. But while you were talking about that, I was thinking about Pete Dern, my buddy, that him and Waltz were kind of a legendary truck crew in Fresno Fire for I know they worked together for at least 12 years. It might have been longer. Um, Seemed like they'd been together forever as a truck. Pete was the captain, Walt was driving. And the joke with them as a truck crew was that they'd been on more roofs than Santa Claus, right? And
Nice.
so, yeah, typical. But it was true. I mean, those guys did a lot of vent jobs, and they were excellent at it. And this was the time when I was not on the job. I was living on the boats. I was over in Catalina. And it was probably around 2000, like 13, 14, somewhere in that ballpark. Pete had he had bought a real nice sport fishing boat, and he named it Dash. And so he came over to the island, and I'd see him every summer, a couple times each summer. He'd come over. So, anyways, he the year before he'd had a different boat, and then he bought this new boat, and he named it Dash. Right, and so he shows up to the island, and I go check out the new boat. I'm like, oh man, this thing's awesome. And I said, what's up with Dash? What's the name? What's that about? And he said, he kind of told the back story to, but what it essentially boils down to is he said, when you die, people that choose to be buried in like a cemetery or whatever, he said, think about it. What do you get on their headstone? You get the year they were born and the year they died. And in between those 2 years is this little line, this dash. And
Hmm.
he's like, that's a person's entire life. And so he's like, you got to live a good dash. You got to make that dash count because unless somebody knows who you are, I mean, when you think about it, if you've ever walked through a cemetery, which I think most of us have been through, like your average graveyard, and you think back to a tombstone you've seen, I mean, and you go, oh, 1910 to 2013. Wow, that person lived a really long life. And you look at that little line, that little dash. Was it a good life? Was it a bad life? Was it an average life? Did they waste their time? Did they maximize their time? So when we talk about it's about time in relation to someone's dash, it's did they even think of it that way? Did they make that dash count or did they just waste it? And so I just thought that was a really cool concept. And then the irony of that later was when Pete got hurt, ended up off the job and everything. Um, it was very impactful. Like, yeah, I mean, he got a second chance at life. I mean, albeit he got hurt and it definitely changed his trajectory. He's still making his dash count. And so, yeah, I just like
Yeah.
that concept.
That's that's way cool, dude. Your dash. Are you making your dash count? It's so true because like, okay, yeah, here's your start day, here's your end day. But what did you do in between all that? Right? Did you make it count? I'm gonna start using that,
Well,
man.
because
How's your
think
dash?
about it,
Yeah,
even if you're young, like I think I've thought about that in the past where I've said it to people that it's like, well, hey, if I were to die tomorrow, um, not like I want to. I mean, I love life and everything, but I think I've lived a pretty good life overall for my age. I've lived the way I've wanted to live. I've lived pretty big. I've done a lot. I've tried to maximize my time. I have tried to um, not miss out on too many opportunities and things like that. So I would hope that as people who are close to me and friends would say, yeah, of course it's a bummer he's gone, but he lived a good dash, even though it was short, it was a hell of a good dash, you know,
yeah,
and that
man. That's
so that's what I would hope people would think of. So when I think of somebody like Javen, as shitty as it is that he's gone, like you were saying, he's so young. I mean, he's all right. He's my age. He's almost 40. Say he's 45, I think.
yeah,
Um, it's like, yeah, it's not fair. It's bullshit. It sucks that he's gone, but man. guy that worked for FDNY, and then he comes to Long Beach, and then he goes to Ontario. I mean, all three are great departments. He leaves behind two little girls. Yeah, he's gone way too soon, but from all accounts, he's a hell of a dad, and
Yeah.
um, and obviously touched lots of people because he has lots of friends. So it's like, as tragic as it is, his dash counted. It mattered. And so, and again, it goes back to it's about time. He did make his time count, even though we can always find better ways to improve our how we do every single day. It's like if you choose to look at it from the opposite spectrum of, you know, overall, I did the best I could to make those days count. I think that's the best you can ask for, is what I think.
Dude, that's okay. Okay, all these men, women listening, don't take that. We're making our dash count. That's like a new T-shirt, dude. Make your dash count. You're like, what? What is a dash?
Dude,
And it creates conversation. That is dude. I love that, man. That is
yeah.
rad. That's awesome. I dig
Well,
it.
and there's a poem out there too about it. I think some lady wrote it years back, but after Pete told me that story, I started seeing it more here and there. And then there was another whole trippy thing that happened was, I guess it was the year after Pete got hurt. Another guy who I worked with, um, I mean, you know the story, but for anybody that's listening, when I came on the job 25 years ago, I was rookies. There were another guy that came on at the same time with me. We were rookies together. We sat in the same row in the academy. We ended up becoming roommates for about 2 years. I mean, we were just, young firemen that were friends. And he was a great dude. And he ended up getting killed in an off-duty accident in 2000. Uh, Gosh, what was it? 2016 was the year after Pete got hurt. So I he had a farm, and he ended up actually it was just a tragic accident that happened with a piece of equipment. And so he had an 11-month-old son, and you know, widow. She went out and actually had to find him and all this stuff, and it was really, really tragic. Point being is that when we opened up his in Fresno, we did this line of duty death um, wish list kind of thing where you filled out a document of what your final wishes would be if you were to be killed. And it was, you know, do you want a funeral? Do you not want a funeral? Do you want a full department funeral or no department funeral? Do you want religious stuff or not? I mean, basically like all of the stuff that you would want if something were to happen. And as morbid as that sounds, it was a great resource because when these types of tragedies happen, you at least had some kind of insight as to what the person would have wanted. So
Yeah,
when we
for
opened
sure.
up my buddy Dan's envelope, and underneath the eulogy, he had written my name. So I was like, okay, that's pretty heavy. Got to do this guy's eulogy now. Just like I said, I started off this podcast by giving credit to Captain Kobe for uh, Walt's eulogy. I had the responsibility for Dan's, and I used the Dash kind of story from Pete to a certain degree to talk about Dan and just say, like, even as horrible as this is, like, he made his Dash count. And then so that was that was like late March of 2016, so about this time of year. um and maybe even just probably almost the same time of year. And so uh fast forward after the funeral, I went down to Bon Air to go diving for like 2 weeks just to, go clear my head and go hang out. And I swear to you, dude, there's a shipwreck there. It's pretty famous. It's called the Helma Hooker. It's this old drug ship that sank there. And so I was down on the shipwreck dive, and I swam out to, there's a double reef there, and it's about 100 foot deep. And I see this thing in the sand, and I'm like, oh, I've never seen that before. And as I get closer, I can tell it's man-made. And then I get closer, I see it's a plaque. And I was like, oh, okay, somebody put a plaque down there to commemorate somebody. And so I swim down to it, and I swear to you, dude, it was like 4 lines of poetry about the Dash.
No
And I
way.
couldn't believe it. Yeah, because I mean, so you had Pete name the boat, Pete gets hurt, Danny dies. I use it in the eulogy. I go down there, and I'm just like, this is too crazy. So, anyways, that's the stuff that, and here again, let's go back to time. I knew this stuff 10 years ago because Pete went through the roof 10 years ago. Dan died 9 years ago, but I didn't change my life drastically then. I didn't embrace it. I wasn't grateful. I still boozed at times. I still made mistakes. I still was, full throttle with life. And it took until I got the SGB shot and the work I've been doing the last few years to really embrace all those ideals. So, um, looking back, I'm not gonna dwell and say that I wasted that time, but it's very easy to hear something like this and be like, "Oh, that's a cool concept," and then just go right back to life and keep doing shit the exact same. So, trying to embrace those types of lessons along the way to let them really make long-lasting impacts, it's difficult, but um, hopefully something like that sticks with somebody.
Yeah. It's just like, did you hear about Hector Cuevas, the 36-year-old, the county sheriff? That happened
No.
out. Oh, you didn't, huh? Oh, wow, yeah. So it just happened a few days ago. Worked for Seminole County Sheriff's Department, and I was teaching at the college, and there were some Victorville guys there, and like, dude, did you just hear? And it was a pursuit, and long story short, a car came out, and he ended up trying to dodge this car, and he wrapped a light pole, and done. Just wife and kids, and you go to work that day, and ain't coming home, right? And it's just one of those things, like in the fire service and in the first responder realm, like, I think it's easy for us to just, I'm not saying he took anything for granted. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying us as people, while we are still alive, let's not take the day for granted. Our friendships, our relationships, the job, whatever it might be, and maximize the day as best as we can, um, with the gift of life we're given, man. Because we truly do not know what the next day is going to bring. And I know when I was younger, it's like, uh, well, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and everything's gonna be good, and not much has really happened. But like you just said, it's like, I think with you've lost. There's been a lot of loss in your life, from working out in Catalina with some your good buddies, to on the job in the fire service, and getting married, and like your perspective has changed. And it's like, but you're looking back now 10 years ago, like, how come I didn't make the changes 10 years ago, right? Um, it's just, we could have the shoulda, woulda, couldas, all those things, but uh, we all have our journeys, and you'll figure it out when you figure it out at the end of the day, man. But I think that's why we have these conversations, because the journeys we've gone through, and the ups and downs, the good times, the bad times. At the end of the day, it is about our time. Enjoy the good times. It's not just about the bad times. Enjoy every freaking second of the good times you have, because without those good times, um, you know, you need them. And without the bad times, you don't even, if you don't have the good without the bad, how are you gonna know the difference? You know, and some people just get stuck in bad and negativity. You can look around the world right now. There's so much negativity, dude. And there, there was this thing somebody sent me, and it was like people walking on the sidewalk, and they were basically acting like they were driving a car. And it was people on the sidewalk flipping each other off, bumping each other, yelling at each other, and just being just irate. And they're like, man, if people walked like they drove, this is how the world would be. I started
Yeah.
laughing. Like, that was awesome. But it's like, just, I don't know. Life gets hard, man, and I get it. It's busy and things are speeding up, but you owe it to yourself to take care of what matters the most, and that's you. That's your health. That's your family. I think us as men in particular, I think there's a lot of uh, lack of leadership. I think there's a lot of lack of accountability. I think just as men, and I think it's our job to uh, hold that role, man, and be that example. And uh, there's a time to I go back to the Bible. There's a time to weep, and there's a time to to be happy. There's a time to work. There's a time and place for everything. And I think us as men and trying to be an example for our families and our friends as well. And, we got to take accountability for ourselves. And the more we do that, we're just going to be better for the world, man. And if we don't, we're like, I don't know, ask myself, what is your purpose? If you're just, not doing much with your life and just kind of, you know, uh, lackadaisical all day and don't really have anything you want to accomplish, it's like, that's depressing, man. That's depressing. And it's like, there's so much that you as a person can give. The world needs your personality. The world needs your perspective. The world needs your voice. And I think in a world where it's like there's so much division and people are so confused, they don't know who to trust, and with AI and with social media, the news and this, that, and the other thing, like, it's about time you go like, do something about it. If you've been through something, if you have some kind of value that you can give to the world, maybe that's your purpose, man, or girl. uh Figure it out, and go help somebody. Go do what you need to do to inspire somebody else, because I know definitely somebody needs to hear what you have to say, because we're all so unique in our own ways, dude, for sure.
Yeah, and it's I think as you were talking, I was thinking about go take it back to Walt again with the way he rolled. I mean, when you say like the world needs you, it's like, well, his world was, Trina and Michael, his kid, and his wife and kid, and of course they needed him, and I mean he was going through hell. I mean literally hell with the chemo and all the gnarly shit that poor dude had to fight and go through. I mean every single day was a war, and he did what he had to do um, to maximize the time he had and to be there for those people, to try to be positive, to try to make the best of the time that, because he didn't know how much time he had, but he tried hard to make it count. And I mean, to me, uh, that was a very it left an impression on me, obviously, right? For me to talk about it. And and as I said, Walt and I weren't particularly close. I'd never gone to his house and had dinner with him and his family. Um, I think ours was mostly a professional respect that we had. And I mean, I went to his house after he passed and pressure washed his backyard with another fireman, because we all signed up for like, uh, uh, doing work over at the house to help Trina out. And so, I mean, again, it was like the fireman friendship that we have from the firehouse. But man, what I saw that dude do, uh, that'll always be with me. And I hope if I ever have to face something like that, that I can face it with the same, strength and uh, consistency and grace that dude did, because he did, man. He made his time count, and even when he was gone, the memorial for him was another place where I learned another lesson, and that was because of Captain Kobe and his message, because that guy's a great speaker, and he's just one of those people that tells it like it is, and his message was excellent that day. So I was grateful to him for that, and I'm glad that we were able to do this one because it's something I've been thinking about, and it ties in a ton of stuff that we always talk about, um, and then just fortunately it worked out where today would have been Walt's birthday, so hopefully it's a little tribute to him, and I mean, I'm sure there's anybody out there who's listening probably got friends or family and that you can relate that to, and hopefully that inspires you to go spend some time with those people because you never know how much time you have with them. My mom, when my mom died from lung cancer, and I remember when we picked her up. Well, it was Christmas of 21 was when she went to the hospital for the last time, and of course that was COVID time, so we couldn't get in to see her, with all the bullshit rules. I think I snuck in like 4 times in uniform, bullshitted my way in,
Yeah.
and but I didn't want to abuse it, so I didn't stay too long, and it was terrible because I mean my mom being there without us was horrible. Well, anyways, after a couple weeks, it was pretty well. certain that there wasn't a whole lot more they could do. So it was a decision for hospice. So I drove down, saw her. We talked about it. We made the decision. So, dude, I came home. I mean, I was on the phone, just, all right, get a hospice bed over here, do this, do that. Got my entire living room set up, went back down to the hospital, organized the ambulance transport, did the whole deal, right? Got medicine, all that. And my wife was in Brazil, and I was talking with the docs. I'm thinking, okay, so how much longer you guys think? And they're like, maybe 2 weeks tops, you know. I said, okay, my wife will be back by then. And so, cool. I thought I had time, right? I thought I had time. So ambulance comes to do the transport from the hospital to my house, right? To enter into hospice. And they gave her like a se- a little sedative to make the ambulance transport easier. And that was it, dude. She never woke up. We came back here. They brought her in the living room, you know, took her off the gurney, put her on the bed. She was sleeping, got her all set up. The hospice nurse came. I started talking to him, just like getting the layout. Okay, here's her regiment. Here's how we're going to do this. And we were both looking at how she was breathing. And you've been on plenty of these calls yourself where I could see it change. I could see my mom's body and everything just like I was like, oh, it's over. Like
Yeah.
her body's it's shutting down. And he looked at me and he's like, you see that? I go, yeah. And he goes, okay. And I go, she's not going to make it through the night. And he shook his head and I said, shit. So I got on the phone real quick, called my sister. I'm like, hey, you need to get your ass out of my house now. And like I said, she never woke up. So at the hospital, it was kind of one of those, like, hey, mom, don't worry. We're going to push in the ambulance. We'll see you back at the house. So the actual ability to say goodbye was never there. And obviously, you don't get that back. So I think I'm okay with it because I understand how. I mean, I've seen enough death with the fire service that when we got home, I'm glad she didn't suffer anymore. And the time I did get spent, I mean, she lived with us here at the end of her life and stuff. So, uh, but the point of me telling that story is just even when you think you've got a little bit more time, you don't always. And
Yeah.
so it's just make sure that you are maximizing it when you have it.
Yeah. I think they give them morphine, dude, because um I know morphine wipes out your respiratory drive as well. I'm not saying that's not the purpose of why they give
No,
it, but because
yeah,
my grandma,
that
go ahead, sorry.
no, that's all right. That particular one, I think they gave her like a small bit of Ambien or something weird. It was a weird combo. They told us that it was because of what she was going through. She had this weird infection
Mm,
in her respiratory system because of the lung cancer. I mean, it wasn't COVID, but she had actually. My mom was such a badass. She'd weaned herself off morphine.
got it.
So yeah, but anyways, sorry.
No, no, you're good. So like with my grandma, it was the same thing. So uh it was the first time I saw someone die in front of me like that versus being on a call kind of thing.
Mm,
And yeah, we were at the at my aunt and uncle's house, and yeah, same kind of thing. And you just, they gave her some morphine or whatever, and I remember I was actually holding my grandma's hand as she took her last breath, and she just looked at me and she just goes, "I can't breathe. I need air." And you just see the
mm,
eyes glaze over, and then the breathing go away. It's a crazy process, man. And
yeah.
the purpose of that is not taking away from your story. It's saying, like, when you see that, you're like, oh wow, yeah, they're on their way out, right? And when you have to see that and feel that when you're close with somebody, like, it just once again shows you how precious your time is on this earth, right? It shows you how precious the interactions you have with your family members. If anybody has any regrets with anything of parents or family members, like, you hear that a lot, right? Of when someone dies, I wish I would have said this. Oh, they died, and I didn't get to say I was sorry, or I didn't get to do this or do that, and this, that, and the other thing. Like, well, take care of it. Take care of it, right? Bitterness, resentment, all this stuff. Like, I get if somebody's wronged you, and it was just evil thing or whatever it might be, but forgive them because really it's going to give you a lot of peace. It doesn't mean you have to hang out with them. Doesn't mean you have to, you know, be be the best friends with them or whatever, but you forgiving them is really taking care of yourself, because if you don't do that, it's just going to bottle up in you and you're really only hurting yourself. So like, it's about time. Just make that decision. Do whatever it is you need to do. If it's, someone you got to go visit, but, along with your mom, like you said, you close the doors and okay, see you at home, mom. Just thinking, not knowing in an hour or however long the transport was, a few minutes or whatever, like, wow, I was not expecting that. And then it happens. And so it's like, I think it's easy for us to, what I've learned, I feel like it's really easy for us to deal with the things we expect that are going to happen. But it's like, what are we doing? How are we going to deal with the things that are unexpected? And I think that's how our character is built. We can build our character and train hard and do all these things and get better for the job, and that's great. But how many times I've been to, like, I think, 4 academies in my career, and you see different personalities come out in everybody. When people are beaten down, tired, hungry, lack of sleep, uh, you'll see some you'll see some different people come out, right? And it's like, maybe
Oh
that's
yeah.
maybe that's something we have to work on, right? So, anyways, just go,
Yeah.
kind of just going back to, your mom, of just, we don't know what's going to happen, and we just, basically work on ourselves and
Well,
communicate that and do the things we need to do to be around the ones we love, for sure.
yeah, because like we said, right? It's about time. So I
Yeah.
think hopefully we've driven that point home, and uh,
So you
yeah,
gonna
like I
you
said,
gonna get in
just
your cold plunge tonight, dude, or what?
I'm gonna actually jump in the sauna right now. It's almost 11, so I'm gonna do a sauna and
Nice.
go to bed. If I do a cold plunge, I'm gonna be up all night. So um,
You will
I do it in the
actually feel
morning.
good
Are you
if you do a
are you
cold
doing cold
plunge.
plunges at night?
When
Yeah,
I'm at the station, I do. Yeah, yeah, because they have a sauna there. So what I'll do is I'll
and
do
you
a cold
sleep?
plunge. Yeah, so yeah, I'll do the cold plunge for like 2 to 3 minutes, and then
Okay.
I'll hop in the sauna with. It's not your traditional sauna, so I will have to be there a lot longer. But I'll hop in. Uh, it's the infrared, right? That's the kind that you have, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, the infrared. Kind of the stations have the same thing, and I'll hop in there for about 45. I'll do like 45 minutes,
Oh
and
wow, you're doing
yeah,
45.
yeah. The last 10 to 15, dude, are brutal. It's like, oh my
Oh
god,
yeah, no, I mean,
it's brutal. But yeah, I'll
well,
hop in there.
the the research says like the best results is spending about 57 minutes for like an entire week as a total. So usually I'm trying to spend about 20-25 in there. Um, so yeah, that's interesting.
But why is it? Does it say what temperature?
For her, the Silberg principles, I believe it's like 187 to 212 was the temp range. That if you spend about 57 minutes total in whatever combination, 15 minutes here, 20 minutes here, whatever, that was like their maximum results that they saw, which
Got it.
also was the one about the a 50% reduction in cardiac mortality in men. They did that. And then for cold, it was supposed to be in the ballpark of like 11 minutes a week of
Yeah,
cold
it's like 11
exposure.
to 12. Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I mean, I'll start trying. I'm not gonna do it tonight. I'm gonna do it first thing in the morning tomorrow, and then I'll probably do sauna and then jump back in it, and then go about my day after I do. So I'll start with a cold plunge, then do sauna, then do another cold plunge, and then I got a ton of stuff I got to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then yeah, then maybe I'll try a cold plunge tomorrow night and then a sauna before bed. But
Yeah.
tonight I'm gonna be a sissy lala and let the thing run and
Get clean and do its
that
thing.
should yeah. It's I still got to hook up one more piece of it, so
Yeah.
but I'm
Well.
excited to get started with it. So I know we talked about it on the last one, but if I think it was RIC150 was the code,
Uh
the
huh.
discount code for the RevXwellness guys, and then RIC250 if you do a $2,500 or more purchase. So
Yeah.
uh maybe maybe we can do another one in the future,
Yeah.
more in depth on our experiences with these. So
Yeah. I think you're
cool.
gonna like it, man, because I know you talk about some of the aches and pains you have from, just jujitsu and all these other things you've done for over the years. But I'm really interested to see, dude, if you get on this routine, of plunging, your 11 to 12 minutes a week with your sauna. Like, I think you're gonna notice. I'm hoping. I'm thinking. I mean, the science and studies are there that say that it helps with inflammation, and it's helped me massively. But I want to see now that you're doing both. Uh, how it does, because I think with the cold plunge, man, I'm pretty sure you're going to see some pretty significant differences. So I'm excited to see how it works for you, bro.
Yeah, being able to use it consistently, because I always feel great when I do it. But I've never had one obviously at home that I could do on a consistent basis. So yeah, I'm in the same boat. So,
Yeah, well, because
but
that's
I'm
the
still
thing.
gonna
It's
hate every second of it because I hate being cold. So
uh, well, because that's what I noticed. Like, I always felt great in it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I get in a cold plunge, because I wasn't consistent. It'd be like, okay, I'll do one like maybe once a week or a couple times a month. But I noticed the benefits when I was consistent with it. And it was like
yeah,
after a month, and I was like, dang, I always feel great. But then I noticed like sleep was better, focus was better, and caffeine actually went down. I noticed a lot of different things with the plunge on a consistent basis, and inflammation, recovery, workouts were better, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, anyways, it'll be cool to hear how
so
you're.
you like lowered how much coffee you're drinking?
Uh-huh, I
Is
sure
that what you're
did.
saying? Wow,
Yeah. So
wow,
typically in the mornings,
that's
like
good.
what would happen before the gym is I would have to have 2 cups of coffee, or I do like the little Nespresso pods, the small version. So it's
Mm,
like one shot of
mm.
espresso. So I would typically, do my cup of water in the morning, fish oil, pills, whatever. And then I would have a cup of coffee and then eat. And then right before I go to the gym, I'll do like another espresso shot just to get a little extra energy. And so what I do now is the cold plunge typically takes care of that. And I'm like, I don't need it. Like, I'm not going to take it just because it tastes great, but I'm like, I don't need it. And so I'm pretty much down to 1 cup, one espresso in the morning. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
that's good to hear that because that was actually something I was thinking that I would like to start doing because I've been pretty consistent lately with just the 2 cups. But because I mean at one point there when I was a couple years back in Fresno, I'm drinking like a pot of coffee a day at the station. Um, so now it's usually two in the morning always, and then the occasional afternoon cup as well. But I was like, man, I probably should cut it down to like one a day. So yeah, we'll see how it works out.
Well, dude, if you
But
look at the research, I think, I don't want to give false information, but I was researching this the other day. I think it was like 2 to 300 milligrams of caffeine a day, like, isn't bad. But I was using Chat GPT and AI. I'm like, hey, what's actually healthy? What's not healthy? Obviously, less caffeine's better. But I was wondering like what's decent, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm still below 200. Like, I'm right within that range. And then when I looked it up, I'm like, I'm only doing like 2 cup, like 2 espressos a day. Like, that's not bad. And so, anyways,
yeah,
yeah, it'll be cool to see how it works for you, man.
cool, brother. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate the time tonight. You guys can reach me at ricfirecaptain@gmail.com.
You can reach me at epadgettcoaching@gmail.com. And then we'll throw the codes out there again for the RevX cold plunges. It's RIC 150, RIC 250. If you guys can like, share, comment, do whatever, it'll definitely help get some of this information out for other listeners. We got the new logo coming out. We are working on a website as well. Not really sure when that's going to be done. We're not really rushing any of this stuff, but we are working on it. Probably out here within the next couple months or so. And we can get in contact with you guys. Got some courses coming out and some curriculum and stuff like that. So, yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys. Keep in contact, and then we'll see you guys on the next one.